Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It is October 2025. I am saying that with some amount of zeal. And I think that's because, it's October. We're getting close to the end of the year. I know we're all feeling that. I know we're all feeling like there's a lot going on. Um, And I want to welcome you back to our monthly series here on LinkedIn Live. We need to give it a name, so maybe we'll put that out sometimes to have you help us give it a name. But this is something that I do every month here on LinkedIn Live. By the way, I'm Erica Hines, founder of Black Women Thriving. And each month, and in each one of these episodes, currently me, but I hope to have guests soon. We talk about how to build workplaces where fairness and trust and thriving aren't just buzzwords that sometimes can be empty, but instead it's the way that we want to do our work. And I I want to acknowledge that, and it's something that we've really been thinking about a lot at Black Women Thriving, is that every month that I come on here and I talk about thriving, um, I recently wrote about this. I don't do it from a place of putting my head in the sand and thinking, oh, well, we should only talk about thriving when all of this is going on around us. Um, no, that's not the reason that I come on and talk about thriving and think about strategies for how we can move closer to thriving. It's because I think that we need to maybe have something to look forward to, something to work towards that's positive in the midst of everything else that is happening all around us in the world, that isn't just out in the world, but in our workplaces too. So, um, we'll continue to move forward in that vein. Um, Today, I want to talk about um, the fact that this is a hard season out there. 2025 has been marked with layoffs, lots of layoffs. 320 plus thousand Black women have been laid off, is one demographic that I'm particularly um, interested in, felt to feel tremendous pain about. There have been hiring freezes. There have been reorgs. There have been places that have shut down. We're in a really difficult time right now, and a lot of people are carrying questions. Every day they go into work and they carry these questions about, you know, am I going to have a job tomorrow? What is my job security and what is my future? And so today, a topic that I'm going to talk about is one that arguably could be, if could be thought of if it was done in a certain way as being tone deaf. But I want to talk about it hopefully from a place of acknowledging where we are, but still knowing that this is a possibility out there. And the topic we're going to talk about is advancement. You know, what does it mean to advance in the current sort of workplace situations? And here's a question that I've been sitting with, or an observation that I've been sitting with for a while, which is, when things are uncertain, which is where we are right now, um, there are still some folks who are moving forward. And advancement and promotions and performance reviews and raises, if those are even a possibility right now, still are very strong signals of value. And they're still important to folks. And so the way that people make those decisions, the way leaders make those decisions, are still important for them to consider. Um, and I think even actually in times like these where it is uncertain, the folks who do receive those things, the scrutiny in which who receives a raise or a promotion or advances in any way, I think it's even more scrutinized because it's so rare. Who gets to lead, who gets to stay, who gets recognized, um, because people were working in this environment where everything seems uncertain. I think people's desire to have fairness and transparency is even stronger than it was before. Um, it's the difference that people it's a difference between people thinking, I trust this place because even in the midst of all of this, they're continuing to operate with integrity versus, I'm going to keep this job. I'm going to show up and I'm just going to do my job. But I don't trust anyone in this place as far as I can throw them. And I sort of talk about those two. I want to bring up those two parts of the spectrum because again, I'm on social media. I'm paying attention to what's happening here on LinkedIn and in other platforms. I do think that people are operating on both sides of those. So people are paying attention. Um, and I just want to say this is why we built Black Women Thriving in the first place, to help organizations hold on to their humanity and to show care, and to continue to move forward with humanity in mind, when pressure tests, like the ones that we're going through right now, test their values. So, why does this conversation still matter? We've got national data that back us up in talking about this topic. So some of it is from us, back, in our sort of national baseline data. One of the things that we found is only 34%, so that's 1 in 3 Black women believe that their performance is evaluated fairly. That's only sort of backed up by McKinsey's research, which showed that when employees perceive advancements as fair, they're dramatically more likely to stay and to have trust in your organization. And Gallup, found that about 1 in 5 US employees strongly trust their leadership. And this is a recent one. This is a recent statistic. 1 in 5 employees, that's only 20%, trust their leadership. That's the lowest trust metric in a decade. So, in talking about like fairness and advancement and thinking about that, this isn't a consideration that's like a nice to have. This isn't something that's soft. This is a survival strategy that organizations need to be um, really thinking about, especially those that want to distance themselves from, I think some of the common beliefs about what's happening in the workplace right now, which is that I think that leaders want to be seen as trustworthy and above and caring about their employees. But I also know that there's this tension um, that is felt between those two groups. So I want to talk to you about a tool that we developed, a toolkit that we developed as a part of our um, as an answer to one of the things that we saw in our data, and that is what we called. It was originally named and is named the Values Aligned Equitable Promotions Tool. I know that's a lot. And what it lays out is sort of like a 4-step process for how, as you're thinking about advancement decisions, again, who stays, if anyone gets a raise, if people get a promotion, if that is even a possibility in your organization. What this does is it says, let's make sure that we are baking in and considering our values, our organizational values, as we make those decisions so that we make them with clarity and transparency and integrity. And I think that's actually, as I'm talking about this, is something that is a word that I think was missing earlier, which is like I think there is a question around integrity these days. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for leaders and organizations right now to show up in their integrity and how they are leading and operating their organizations because I think people want that. Actually, I don't think it. I know it. I know people want integrity. I think they always want integrity, and I think right now it's even more important to operate in that integrity. So let's talk about the framework for a little bit. Um, every framework that I create starts out with one belief that thriving is possible when structure and compassion are put together. And we build all of our toolkits and everything that we have to help organizations create um, workplaces that thrive with the belief that when Black women thrive, everyone thrives. So I'm going to quickly walk through the 4 phases of this tool with an open invitation to share with you that if any parts of this tool resonate with you, that you should check it out and become a member of our Thrive Hive to find out more about it. So 4 phases. I'm going to go through each phase pretty quickly, not going to sort of belabor it. So the first phase is assessment and awareness. And I have some notes, so I am going to read from those. In the first phase, this is where we pause and we ask you to consider, do your values actually show up in how you make decisions? We ask you as folks who do make hiring decisions or who do make decisions about advancement to really think about um, looking at your opportunities and thinking about questions like when we talk about leadership potential, when we talk about executive presence, um, what do we really mean by that? And how do we make sure that when we're talking about those topics, which in the past have been shown that you can sort of bake in biases, how do you actually show up and make sure that when you're talking about topics like that, that you can give sort of like specific examples of that? Um, how do you show up and when you're talking about executive presence, what does executive presence mean? And how does that fit into the values that you have as an organization? Um, the goal here is to provide clarity. It's not to, I just mentioned biases. It's not necessarily to say like, oh, that was bias. It is to say the more that you can provide clarity of what you mean when you are assessing how you lean into doing those performance reviews and provide clarity, um, the more equitable your process is. So the second phase is about measurement and training. This is where we replace vibes with evidence. And so this is, as I just talked about, how we define what excellence actually looks like in observable behaviors. This is where we might do additional training with managers about what's a shared language. And I hope that actually, as I'm saying all of this, things that you've actually done. So this is just a helpful reminder. But what we're talking about here is how do we make sure that we build shared language so that teams evaluate performance in the same way? When people understand the how behind the decisions, when we make sure that we operate with a sense of transparency, they may not always love the outcome, but they'll trust the process. And so in this measurement and training, what we want to do is really think about when I was just talking about the types of training that we want leaders to have. I think we actually need to do more training and reminders about trust as managers and leaders and how we make sure that we are showing up and I don't want to say showing up as trustful. What I do want to say is how, as leaders and managers, are we making sure that our team members feel that the processes that we have in our organizations, they can trust them? Um, so that is phase 2 of this tool. Phase 3 is about implementation and monitoring. So this is where the fairness part of this tool becomes visible. Um, it might look like publishing promotion criteria in plain language. These continue to be effective practices for making sure that we are values aligned. If you say that you believe in making sure that everyone has the same chance to get the same job, or everyone has the same chance to get a promotion, or everyone has, the way that you decide what bonuses are, then operating in transparency and making sure that people know what that is super important. Um, or creating a quick check after each talent review that says, let's make sure as we've gone over everything, that we were as objective and evidence-based as possible. Um, because once we do that, once we give ourselves the time and the space to not only one, be transparent, but two, make sure that all of our decisions are backed up, and that we monitored ourselves. I mean, I do think that what I'm saying here is like have a certain amount of vigilance about operating from this place of clarity and transparency. Um, I think that this really will go a long way, again, towards trust building. And I think that that's sort of the underlying theme that I'm talking about this month, which is like rebuilding trust. How do we make sure that in aligning ourselves with our values, one, I am saying that trust should be a value that most organizations should have. And two, I'm saying, what are all of the ways that we can make sure that trust and transparency and integrity are built into all the decisions that we're making? So this tool helps to do that. The final part of the tool that I want to talk about is review and improvement. And this is where we're talking about values alignment, and we're talking about we're talking about advancement decisions that you might be making at this time. And so in this phase, this is where after every round of decisions, we do that questioning where we say, as a final gut check, did this feel aligned with our values? Did we drift in any ways? And as we think about what's going to be the next round of decisions that we have to make, whether that's layoffs, whether that's reorgs, or whatever it is, that do we need to make any adjustments? As I contemplate the necessity of talking about all of this at this time, I want to not just make sure that I'm putting this into context uh, for the current kind of workplace um, environments that we find ourselves in. I also want to make sure that, and I'm just sort of thinking about my words, so that's why this is sort of, I'm stretching this out. Um, I also want to invite us during this time to lean into care, which I know is a topic that maybe doesn't necessarily lend itself to um, what we have seen happening this year. But I do think that we have an opportunity to reclaim some amount of care and um, I know I said humanity earlier, but I'm going to say it again, humanity about how we are in relationship with each other in the workplace. And I think that that doesn't just mean that it is in relation that it is in relations relationship to our relationships, so meaning like our team relationships, but I think it is also important for us to reclaim that in our leadership, and for those of you who have been operating from a place of care to continue to do so. So, I appreciate you all taking this time with us. Um, I, you know, I feel like today was, I think I had a message that even I didn't know that I had. And if you have stayed with us, I appreciate you doing that. And know that we at Black Women Thriving continue to be here to support those of you who want to move yourselves and your organizations from surviving to thriving. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next month. Bye.